I'm joined now by award-winning actor John Lithgow. You know him from Third Rock from the Sun, Harry and the Hendersons, The Crown, and so much more. Now he's playing Roger Ailes in the upcoming film Bombshell and has a new book of poetry out called Dumpty, The Age of Trump in Verse. Welcome.
Yes, I feel welcome.
Good. I'm really excited to talk to you about this book. And I want to start off actually with a tweet from Dan Diamond, who said, the front page of the New York Times website on day 1,000 of the Trump administration reads like a parody prediction from 2016 of what Trump's presidency would look like. And our own Brandon Wall actually replied to this tweet and said, right down to the John Lithgow op-ed. Did you ever think you would be writing an op-ed for the New York Times about the president of the United States?
No. Can you imagine the nerve?
Well, what made you decide to get so vocal about it?
Well, Trump has a way of making your blood boil.
Yeah.
You know, on both sides of the political spectrum. But at a certain point, I just thought, well, I've got to do something about this. And being an entertainer, I decided to entertain people on the subject.
Certainly. And one of the things that was fun about reading this book is revisiting just all of the stuff that has happened. Like, I forgot about so many of the people. You
forget. That's the thing. You forget so quickly. And he makes you forget because there's always some outrage that just, they come at you like cars in a freight train.
Well, or it's like over the top ridiculous that it strikes me as it would be almost a challenge to write satire about it. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Although satire at the moment is better than it's ever been in the country. So he's a good subject. Mm-hmm. No, I finished the last of my poems on April 1st, which now seems a century ago. Think of all the things that I did not address. But on the other hand, everything before April 1st would be forgotten if it weren't for things like this.
That is very true. You'll have to give us a whole other book of just the stuff that has happened over the summer.
Actually, I've been writing little tiny poems and putting them on Instagram just to keep current.
Okay, good. Well, one of my favorite poems was Cavanati, and I'm going to ask you to read a little bit, but first, do you want to also tell me about one of your favorite poems, too?
Oh, I don't know. It's hard. It's like picking your favorite child. One of my favorites is called The Ostrich's Lament. It's about Paul Manafort, but it's not about Paul Manafort. Mm-hmm. It's about Paul Manafort's ostrich skin jacket. Mm-hmm.
Which also, that was one of those things that I was like, I forgot about that, and then I was reminded.
You forget.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, hopefully this will be a memorable book.
Okay, so I have, this is open to Cavanati. If you could read us a little bit of it.
All right, you did pick one of the dangerous ones. I don't often go after Supreme Court justices, but this is called Cavanati, and this will remind you of certain congressional hearings last year. Cavanati, chosen to parse constitutional law, he's Brett Kavanaugh. A Bethesda-bred jock from elite Georgia prep, he's Brett Kavanaugh. Renowned for a weird predilection for beer, he's Brett Kavanier. Beach blanket blowouts with PJ and Squee, he's Brett Kavany. Connected forever with barfing and boofing, he's Brett Kavanoofing. A boozy assault on Christine Blasey Ford, he's Brett Kavanord. Waggling his dick in a Yale co-ed's face, he's Brett Kavanace. Sifting through muck for Counselor Starr, he's Brett Kavanaugh. Sitting on secrets for Cheney and W, he's Brett Kavanubya. The Federalist Society's bright golden boy, he's Brett Kavanaugh. Declaring a hit job by Bill and by Hillary, he's Brett Kavanillery. Unleashing a rant that outdid Justice Thomas, he's Brett Kavanaugh. Backed in the end by the Senate Boys Club. He's Brett Kavanaugh. Of all the fine judges that POTUS could choose to sit in the company of Charles Evans Hughes and Warren and Brennan and Brandeis and Marshall, magisterial jurists, wise and impartial, instead dumpty-fingered this callow young cad. The feeblest justice we'll ever have had. Hardly the Solon our founders foresaw. He's Brett Kavanaugh.
Oh, I love this because it is both, it brings some levity to something that was really hard for so many people to watch. Yeah. What is your process when you're writing about these things? Like, break it down for me. Like, what does it look like when you sit down and write one of these poems?
Well, I remember asking Tom Waits how he wrote songs, and he said, well, some of them are made of wood and some of them are made of paper. They're all different. A lot of them I chose as models very familiar poems, like poems by Lewis Carroll or Edward Lear, The Owl and the Pussycat, The Walrus and the Carpenter, or John Masefield's I Must Go Down to the Sea Again, about Betsy DeVos. I must go down to the sea again, to the lonely sea in the sun. I've got a flotilla of 10 big yachts, and I'll pick my favorite one, etc.
Yes.
And I just think of a hook and just gnaw it like a bone. I need complete silence and about 8 hours of unbroken concentration. And by God, I get it done.
And then you can do it. Well, before this book came out, you were actually playing Donald Trump this summer in a play called The Investigation. You also recently did a Giuliani impression that a lot of people are reacting to this summer. So you've played some of the people who are have appearances in this book. Talk to me about the Giuliani impression that you did.
It happened about 12 hours ago. I did it on on Colbert's show on late night last night. It was chaotic. I was there as a guest, and they called and said, well, will you do Giuliani too, the way Laura Benanti does Melania?
Yeah.
And I said, well, sure. I brought along my actual vintage Buckaroo Banzai teeth.
What?
My Dr. Lizardo teeth. I still have them after 25, 30 years. And they painted them bright white, and I clicked them in. And I wouldn't say I was Giuliani to the life, but I was Giuliani. I was certainly a version of Giuliani. If you haven't seen it, Alex, you got to see it.
Can you give me any Giuliani right now?
Oh, my. Rudy, woo! I mean, I'm the last person I would have ever picked to play Rudy.
Really?
But I leaped at it.
Well, when you're getting into character for some of these public figures, I mean, how do you avoid making it a caricature of who they are?
Well, I was certainly a caricature of Rudy Giuliani. But Roger Ailes, Winston Churchill, I even played Bill Clinton last year on Broadway. Again, there are a variety of choices. Clinton and Hillary in Nicholas Nath's remarkable play are deliberately not impersonations at all. But I tried to be as accurate as I could with Roger Ailes. It was useful, the fact that people are not very aware of what he really looked and sounded like. He himself didn't like to be seen that much. But we tried to make it very accurate. And I was helped by an enormous fat suit, extraordinary makeup, and as much research as I could do. As I say, everything is different. Just technically, there was heavy prosthetic makeup for Ailes. Playing Winston Churchill, I didn't use any prosthesis at all. And yet my Ailes makeup artist was the man who created the great makeup for Gary Oldman, playing Winston Churchill. So, as I say, there are lots of different approaches.
Now, for Ailes, was there anything in particular that was the most challenging aspect to play about him? You mentioned that there wasn't a lot, I guess, about his personality because he wasn't quite as public.
Nothing was challenging. It was easy as pie.
Really?
It was hard work. It was very meticulous. The only hard acting is bad writing, and it's a brilliant script by Charles Randolph. You'll see. It's a great movie.
I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I interviewed Gretchen Carlson here, and we talked about some of the in real life aspects of it. One of the things about, I guess, Ailes that is so striking and something I'm curious about is how do you get into the mindset of someone who has such alleged serial predation? I mean, someone who has been painted as just such a villain. Do you have to try to understand someone like that to be able to play them?
You do. You make an effort to understand him. That's the whole challenge. I mean, I'm in the business of empathy. That is finding out what makes people tick, why they are driven to behave the way they do. And that goes for people who do very, very good things and people who do very, very bad things. The most fascinating research I did on Ailes was tracking down a friend of mine from the 1970s who in those days worked with Roger as his co-producer, his associate producer on New York theater. Ailes had the ambition to be a Broadway producer back then. And to just hear my friend Stephen talk about Roger in those days, He actually was kind of upset by what history has done to Roger, because he said, for all the despicable things he ended up being accused of and charged with and guilty of, no one says a word about what fabulous company he was, how he had this boisterous and challenging sense of humor. He was capable of laughing for 30 seconds at a stretch at a single joke. He was very challenging to his own conservative clients for being too right-wing and for not having enough empathy. Very, like, things that take you aback.
Yeah, that sounds very disarming.
They're so opposite than the conventional wisdom and what my own expectations were playing the part. But watch the film, because at every point, not to make him sympathetic, but to have sympathy with the devil. I mean, to find out what drives him and how it's very likely that what drives him is something that he himself is deeply ashamed of. That makes it a much more fascinating dilemma, playing the part.
Well, I have to say, I will definitely be seeing that movie every time a new trailer comes out. I am like hooked to like everyone else, I am hooked to my computer.
I think it's a major film.
Yeah.
And certainly the first great film of the Me Too movement.
Well, I could not let you go without asking you at least one Third Rock from the Sun question.
My favorite thing.
So we're seeing, I feel like you get asked this question every couple of years. Now we are seeing like a whole new tide of different shows being rebooted. Third Rock from the Sun reboot, would you ever do it?
Well, I would never say no to anything. Third Rock, my only hesitation is that it was the perfect experience. And I'm a little wary of returning to anything and sort of have it be anything less than what it was. It was a perfectly wonderful 6 years. And it was a youthful game. I'm, 20 years older now. And for one thing, it was high energy. Your mind had to be so quick. I'm slowing down.
I mean, that can't be, come on. With this book, that can't be true.
Well, yeah, I just told you I take 8 hours to write 2 stanzas of a poem.
Yeah. Well, it has been really fun getting to talk to you. I wish I could keep you here to read me more poems, but we have to end it there. So thank you so much.
And you have to see me play Rudy Giuliani.
Yes, I definitely will check that out. Well, Bombshell hits theaters in December, and Dumpty, The Age of Trump in Verse is out now.